You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
Hello and welcome to the Tracy Sandler Show, brought to you by FIVO. I am your host, Tracy Sandler, and I am so excited to bring back one of my favorite guests. Hopefully the other guests aren't watching and listening today, but one of my absolute favorite guests, who I think was actually one of my very first guests on the Tracy Sandler Show, the incredible Cam Inman. Cam, welcome back to the show.
Tracy, welcome to the Cam Inman Show.
It basically is the Cam Inman Show because I think you've been on like 3 or 4 times. So it basically is the Tracy and Cam
No.
Show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so lucky. I've had the pleasure of seeing you pretty much every day the last couple of weeks. This may be the first day in 2 weeks that we're not in the same place. So I'm glad that we can talk some 49ers football today. Training camp officially over.
Yep.
Preseason has begun. The 49ers take on the Green Bay Packers in what promises to be a barn burner at Levi's Stadium Friday night. We're not going to preview the game because it's a preseason game and nobody cares. But there are things to look for in this game that I think are very important. I think we should start with the quarterback because that's all anybody ever talks about anyway. There are other things I want to discuss, but let's start with the quarterback. Trey Lance, we saw over the last couple weeks, up and down. Not super surprising to me. I feel like it's going to be up and down for a while. We saw him have probably his worst practice of camp on Sunday, his best practice of camp on Tuesday, and then Wednesday was like, for those of you who aren't watching, it's like my hands going up and down. So Kyle Shanahan said the plan is for Trey to play a little bit in game 1. So how much time do you think we're going to see? And is there a way to tell fans not to overreact on the probably 1 to 2 series he plays on Friday?
No, it's all about overreacting because we've been waiting 8 months to see him on a field again, and people that aren't at practice. We'll just see him in a game action. Because last time he played was against the Houston Texans in the home finale, which he won, which he threw a 45-yard touchdown pass to Deebo Samuel to clinch things. So I think everybody's going to overreact. And you're right. The whole training camp has been, and I'll use my hands to show like an ocean wave. It's been up and down. There haven't been any Maverick-size wipeouts. There have not been any sensational long bomb connections where you go, woo, look at that. I mean, he's gone deep a lot, often to Deebo Samuel, and is unable to. They're falling incomplete. And it's just like, well, at some point they're going to hit. But what it shows me is they are going to use all the boundaries of a football field that they couldn't use with Jimmy Garoppolo, because he has arm strength to get it outside the numbers, to go downfield. And then when that's not working, because I still think this is going to be a run-oriented offense, and even more so because Trey can run with the ball, and there will be design runs. There won't be 10 design runs a game or 14, whatever it was against Arizona. But he can run, and that's why they wanted him. That's why they drafted him. And people shouldn't overreact when he runs either, saying he's going to be the next Kaepernick. He's so different than Colin Kaepernick was as a quarterback. Even just the way he runs is different than Cap. Cap was more straight line. Trey's got a lot more wiggle, and he just slides just more gracefully, I'd say, through things, whereas Cap was kind of a violent straight-ahead runner and a violent straight-ahead thrower, whereas Trey's got some touch. And it's been fun to watch. I mean, it's going to be a show. We see it in practice every day where you go, wow, it's really, he's on. And then it's, whoa, where did that go on? So there's going to be a lot of that.
So how many series do you predict? This is prediction time. How many series do you predict he plays on Friday night? Because obviously,
I'll go 2 series, unless the first series is like a 12-play touchdown drive that covers 80 yards. Because then you go, okay, the fans saw enough of him. Let's get him out, get him healthy, and it's Nate Sudfeld time. There's a balance here, right? Because he needs the reps. He needs any rep he can get. But Kyle Shanahan tipped his hand the other day saying he despises exhibition games. There's no reason to play them. He wishes they were joint practices.
So same, by the way. Same.
Yeah, well, right. Which is what, and there's only 3 preseason games. But with the joint practices looming in Minnesota, it's like, well, that's what your real goal is this exhibition or preseason is, to get there. So give fans a little taste of their money and what's coming with Trey. You're not going to unveil all these great plays with him. Probably not going to have him run it all. I'm going to have him hand off 3 times, maybe throw once to a Ross Dwelly or a backup tight end and then get out of there. That's what I would think, Tracy. What do you think?
I agree with that. And I also was going to say, I don't think we're going to see him run. We're not going to see design runs. The last thing this team wants is Trey Lance to get hurt, and then they cannot trade Jimmy Garoppolo because that is, or release Jimmy Garoppolo.
Hey, by the way, I don't think we've seen Trey Lance slide yet. And that's one of the things with running quarterbacks. Once they take their first hit, the first question the press conference will be, "Have you guys taught him how to slide? Because he really looks
Hmm.
like he needs to." When Jimmy Garoppolo blew out his knee in Kansas City, he wasn't thinking about sliding. He was thinking about scoring a touchdown, and then a cornerback came and sideswiped him, and just as his knee was getting blown out. So that's coming. It's a familiar storyline. Jeff Garcia had dealt with it too when he was on the Niners, and a little bit of cap. So
Well, I think we saw that in the Arizona game because there was that one game where he was close to he only started the two. So there
right.
was the first game he started where he was close to the goal line and he could have slid and he did kind
Ah,
of run into anybody to somebody and he did get hurt, I believe, is he did get hurt on
well,
that play.
it was a 4th and 1 play from the 1 yard line, and it was supposed to be a pass, and he took off running for the right pylon. And was it Isaiah Simmons with the
Yes.
Cardinals linebacker drilled him at the goal line to keep him out? And it's like, oh, there goes the whole franchise in one first start. But he
Mhm.
bounced back. He sprained a knee, I guess, later on. But I guess that's the other thing is he's made it through camp relatively healthy that we know of. There's no arm fatigue necessarily that we can see. The body looks okay, and he's got a long way to go here. I mean, you got 3 preseason games and then 17 regular season games. Although he may not play the second preseason game. I don't know. I mean, it was interesting that Kyle kind of ruled that out
Mhm.
already. So
Well, it didn't totally surprise me that he ruled it out just because of the joint practices. And I
right.
think he feels like it is an interesting balance, though. I think with Trey, it's an interesting balance just because, like you said, he does need the reps. He is essentially a rookie quarterback, but they just can't afford to take a chance. Because, like I said before, the worst case scenario is he gets hurt and they can't trade or release Jimmy Garoppolo. That he gets hurt bad enough that they're like, well, now we do need to have Jimmy. That's a storyline that I don't think anybody wants. So
Yeah.
um, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for tomorrow. Sorry, I
I
thought
have
you
a
were going to say
question
something.
for you
Please.
because somebody brought up a good question for me the other day of what was the best thing that Trey Lance learned from Jimmy Garoppolo?
Oh, that is a very good question.
Because like he never really talked about it or has never really said it. But
No, he just
I
says
have I have my theory. What's your theory?
I actually think he learned, and this is no disrespect to Jimmy Garoppolo, so I'm going to start with that.
Okay.
I think he learned how to be very different than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh,
He's very and they have different styles and there are different
yes,
styles of leadership and different styles of camaraderie, and
yes.
so Jimmy was very, very well liked in the locker room.
Hmm.
There is no doubt about that. He
Hmm.
was really beloved. I think Trey's also beloved, but he's different. He shares every one of his teammates posts on social
Hmm.
media. He shares in his Instagram story.
Right.
We talked to him a couple weeks ago and he'd had a touchdown pass to Marcus Johnson, I believe is who
Hmm.
it was too, and
Hmm.
he took no credit for it. And Jimmy was like that too. So I think he
Yep.
also learned that, but he's a little more forthcoming. He's a little more, I don't know what the word is that
He's willing to be the lead man more,
he's
is
willing
what
to
you're
be
saying.
the lead man more. And I think he learned, in some ways, learned that from Jimmy Garoppolo, if that makes sense.
And yeah, because I think my answer is that what did Jimmy do best? And that was kind of what you alluded to. He had his teammates' trust.
Hmm.
And when Trey's replacing a guy like that, you can't be phony. You have to be encouraging, you have to be supportive. So I think he took away just watching how Jimmy interacted with guys and just became one of the guys, but somebody that, had their back. And that's exactly what Trey, it's natural for Trey. So that's kind of
Hmm.
what I see. So,
The other thing that I think he learned from Jimmy Garoppolo that I think is interesting that his teammates talk about that they used to say about Jimmy too is that he's the same person. I know it is a little cliche, but he's the same person whether he just threw an interception or he just threw a touchdown pass. And of course, we haven't really seen that yet in game
right.
sense. So we'll see how that goes
Right.
throughout his season. But
Yeah.
it's something that they always said about Jimmy and Kyle always said about Jimmy. And they all say that about Trey. And I wonder if that's something he learned as well. That could just be naturally who he is, but I do find it interesting.
Yeah, was it Kyle Juszczyk that brought up the when he bought into Trey Lance was when he threw a touchdown pass and said, "Okay, now that's off my back." And it's like that's off his back, but we barely have seen any touchdown passes in through 12 training camp practices. Not like because they stopped the field like the first week of training camp, they didn't let the teams go past midfield. So
Right.
they just kind of wanted to keep that possibility of throwing it deep out there, but there haven't been many touchdowns, which I think might be a little concerning. I don't know. I mean, if it was me, I would line up on the 20-yard line for like 4 straight days and just work on my fade passes. I'd work on throwing it to George Kittle. I'd want to get more red zone efficiency rather than just throw the rookie out there and say, okay, when that pass isn't there, then you're going to run. So,
Well, it's interesting because I think, at least from the time I've been covering the team, it's the least amount of move the ball that I've seen in training camp
mm,
and the least amount of red zone that I've seen in training
yeah.
camp, which was
Well,
interesting.
and that could happen when they go behind the curtain the 2 weeks before the regular season, once they kick
Right.
our wonderful eyes out of the practice
Well,
facility.
there's also fans there, and I think I don't know if
Recording.
you've noticed recording, and I don't know if you've noticed NFL teams, they're a little paranoid about who's
Yeah.
recording what. So even when the signs are up and everyone's with those signs, no photos or videos, you can't control that. So you have fans recording stuff, and I think with Trey, I mean, I have a feeling that Kyle has a number of tricks up his sleeve when it comes to Trey. We can call him Trey tricks. If we want to start getting that going now,
Right.
we can.
Yeah.
Trey tricks. We can totally get that trending.
That's
But
kind of what
I
the name of
think
this podcast was going to be, wasn't it?
Trey, right? Because Trey, it's so funny. Whenever sometimes when someone says Trey Sermon, the beginning of it, I'm like, yeah, because it sounds like Tracy Trey Sermon. But
Gray
um,
area.
Trey, yeah, I'm gonna have to start doing a poll. Who's your favorite Trey? Lance or
Oh,
Lance or Sandler?
yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see in actual game time, like when they play the Bears in Week 1. That's when
Yes.
we're gonna get a
Yeah,
real
I mean this,
idea.
this so this preseason opener against the Packers, we're not going to have the snow of Lambeau Field or a blocked punt or return for a
No,
touchdown euphoria. We're gonna have hey, nice to see you guys again. Oh, there's number 5. Look at him. Oh, he looks
uh-huh.
like a quarterback. That's really cool. Okay, let's go get another $30 beer.
Yep. And there's Nate Sudfeld, and now it's Brock Purdy time. Who, by the way, I just want to give Brock Purdy a little credit. On Wednesday, threw a couple of very nice passes.
Hey, he and I have a connection. I don't know if he saw that at practice, last
Yes.
weekend, but
Well, he threw one really beautiful pass to one Cam Inman, and you did a great job catching that and saving the life of our colleague Jennifer Lee Chan.
yeah, yeah, she was like a little bump coverage. I like spread her off, and then right there, I brought it. I didn't high point it. I kind of let it come into the chest. It's all
Mm-hmm.
good. Could have been a
You did a great
disaster,
job.
You don't want to start the season getting one in the nose and just,
Oh,
showing up the next day and not going on the Tracy Sandler show because you have to wear sunglasses like general managers that fall off their bikes, but it's all good.
right. Sorry. This would have been an audio only. Actually, my last few have been audio only, and I will be very honest that they've been audio only just because I have not been able to get myself ready. I've had too much going on where I'm like, this is gonna have to be audio only. But today we got to do video. So luckily you didn't get hit in the nose with football, and
Yes.
the people get to see
I
your
did get
lovely
hit in
face.
the nose with a football once when Alex Smith threw the ball out of bounds in a
Oh,
practice.
but
But
you seem to
one
recover.
of the other riders face guarded me, so I couldn't see the ball coming in.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That sounds scary. I mean, I get scared. I'm like this at a baseball game. Someone hits a foul ball, no matter where it is in the stadium, I just duck and hope for the best. And that's kind of like what I'm like on the practice field.
Well, unless it's your guy Cody Bellinger, then you would be fine getting hit by him, so you could get it autographed. And
That's probably true because I do love Cody. It's so funny. It is Friday too, and we do Cody Corner. So I'm glad you brought him up. But we'll do
oh,
that. We'll do
so
that later.
cute.
He's oh yeah, Cody Corner. It's my favorite. I mean, his week has not been as amazing as his weekend, but that's okay. We'll get to that in a bit. You did bring one other Trey Lance thing that I wanted to touch on before we move on to other. There are other parts of this team, though you wouldn't know it, but there are other parts of this team. You
Absolutely.
brought up he got out at the moment relatively healthy, and I think that actually is worth discussing because last year at the end of preseason he did get hurt. He started the
Mhm.
Arizona game in Arizona. He did get hurt, and so I felt there was a little concern on the health standpoint, which is one of the reasons they moved on from Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think it's actually worth just mentioning that he did get out healthy, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, and it's funny the revisionist history that we're hearing now because he broke that finger in the preseason finale. And Trey talked about this back in April or May when we talked
Mhm.
to him in spring, and he said that messed up his throwing mechanics his rookie year. And it's like, oh, okay. So had it not messed up the throwing mechanics, would he have been rushed back into action in place of Jimmy Moore? And it's that like storyline starting to emerge a little bit, saying, "Oh, we
Mhm.
had faith in him all last year. There was just this little injury health issue that we had to take care of." And I mean, it's football. He's gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Like, so they're wearing these concussion guardian caps, cushioned
Mhm.
caps, and it was everybody saying how great they are, not necessarily to protect players' heads, but to protect quarterbacks' fingers.
Uh-huh. Which I think is kind of funny that that's what everyone has basically talked about
Right?
when they've been asked about it.
Yeah.
Our colleague Jerry McDonald's been asking about it, and everybody's response is basically like it's great that quarterbacks aren't breaking fingers,
Right.
which is
Well,
interesting.
and I guess that's very important because say Trey Lance does get injured, then it becomes the Nate Sudfeld show, and everybody's going to be going, "Wait a minute, where's Jimmy now? Is Jimmy still around? Is Jimmy around?" Uh,
Jimmy, Jimmy.
I did not see Jimmy Garoppolo at practice the other day, by the way. I was wondering if something every time I'm just like we're all on alert for the last like 9 months. When is
Hmm.
Jimmy moving? And
Whenever Kyle's late, 2 minutes late to a press conference, is Jimmy being traded? Where's Jimmy
I mean,
going?
yeah, I mean, what's going on? So you're just waiting for another quarterback to get hurt. I mean, this could be a big weekend, okay?
Yeah.
Because a quarterback could get hurt somewhere else. Tom Brady is away from the Buccaneers this week. There's always mystery and intrigue about NFL quarterbacks, and the
Hmm.
Niners know this, and so they can just wait it out like another 2 weeks and find out,
Hmm.
okay, is anything going on? All right, nothing's going on. Fine, we'll release you. But in the process, there's no harm right now to their salary cap. There's no harm
Hmm.
to Jimmy's ego. Jimmy seemed very content the couple times I've run into him and talked to him. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's very interesting
Yep.
though. Very bizarre. Very bizarre.
It is. It does feel very bizarre. And those first couple days where we would see him out there and he'd run by us and be like, "Hey Cam, hey
Yeah.
Tracy." I mean, he's so nice. But to them it
Looking
like
good,
doesn't seem
feeling good.
bizarre. Yeah. Like it to them, it doesn't seem bizarre. That one day of practice where he was
On the field.
actually throwing on the field, and
Yes.
then they started warm-ups and he was still on the field. I was like, is he gonna go join warm-ups? That would be amazing. Then we'd
It
be
was
able to
like it
film
was the
him.
catwalk. Like, here was your
Yes.
fashion model out here showing it off for all the fans, and then he went back behind the curtain, and it's like, oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, all right, that's fine. Get some video of him,
Yep.
let everybody know he's still around. So, but here's what I'll say. Just bring it back to this team. I don't think it's a distraction whatsoever because
It's
a
not.
lot of people say, "Oh, yeah, you can't do it." Last year, we're having both of them on the team. Steve Young's like, "That's not going to work. You can't have that. It's going to be." And Steve's the one that's gone through it more than anybody in the NFL history,
Mhm.
being with Joe, and it worked. It worked fine.
It
It did.
worked.
Although Jimmy said after the season that he wouldn't wish that on anybody because it was so
Mhm.
awkward.
Mhm.
From our perspective, it didn't seem as awkward. They covered up quite well whatever awkwardness there was. But I mean, I do like the fact that they've gone for it. So it's Trey Lance's team. The Trey Lance era has begun. They have to do that. They've
They
mortgaged
do.
their future on it. And if this bombs, you're going to be looking at a new coach in 3 years and a new quarterback in 3 years, right? I mean, Trey
Mhm.
will have 3 seasons to prove himself because of how high he was drafted, and Shanahan will be with him every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Shanahan's legacy with this team is dependent on this 22-year-old
Yeah, I mean,
quarterback out of North
everybody's going to
Dakota
look
State.
back and say, "Wow, he took a team that started 0-9, that was terrible, and he brought them to 2 NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl. Then he gambled and went for this new wave quarterback, and it didn't work out. Or else, and
Mhm.
look at this, he had the magic touch with this guy too." So,
Mhm.
I think his legacy is pretty secure. I have really enjoyed covering him. I've covered a lot of
Yeah.
49er coaches in my 20 years or plus covering this team, and Kyle's very transparent. At least it's like to a certain extent. He's friendly. He relates well
Mhm.
with the players, but he's also really demanding. You can tell, and he's
Mhm.
extremely smart. And I think the only matter that I just am curious about is he snake bit in fourth quarters of big games, and it's
Yeah.
not him. It's the whole team. It's like they need to get over that fourth quarter hump. And I don't think that's necessarily a reflection of him. It's just that stigma is going to be attached to him.
I agree with you. It's not a reflection of him, but you at a certain point does it become, and not necessarily of him, but of the team, a
Yeah.
self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, you saw Jaquaski Tart drop
Mm.
that very easy interception, and there's things happen, but at a certain point, does it become like this like self-fulfilling prophecy? Okay, we have to get out of the fourth quarter. At some point, we have to hold on to a 10-point fourth quarter lead. I will see if that happens, but at
Well,
some
yeah.
point,
So in training camp every day, they just skip to the fourth quarter, and that's all they do.
that's all they do going
Hey,
forward.
we don't need
That's
this like install stuff. Let's get to the fourth quarter. Okay. Here comes
straight
the
to the
Matthew
fourth
Stafford,
quarter.
what Mike Silver called it, a meatball. Here comes the
Yeah.
Stafford meatball. Get it?
But I do, and I think for Kyle, of course, it's got to be on his mind. But I agree with you. I really enjoy covering him as well. Granted, the only coach I covered before Kyle was Chip Kelly, which was a very different experience. But I do really like covering
Every
Kyle.
coach is has their own unique style.
Hmm.
There hasn't been one where I hated. The most challenging and the most fascinating one is now coaching at your alma mater at the University of Michigan.
Go
That
Blue!
that was amazing covering him. Mariucci was great when I first started because he would like Steve never tried to take things too seriously. It was a very
Hmm.
serious time. They had new ownership. He had a diva wide receiver that was always fighting with him. He had a lot of he had taken over this franchise that was desperately trying to cling on to their Super Bowl contention. But he was very open like that. In those days, Tracy, we could be out at, like it's like at practice right now in training camp where we're
Hmm.
out there for 2 hours, hour and a half,
Hmm.
a little bit more free reign to go talk to assistant player or assistant coaches and players as they came off the field, anybody you wanted. But that's because that's where you really learn. You learn about the game.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean you're writing everything or recording everything. I guess that's kind of one of the issues with our society now is you can record and video and
It was,
transcribe
pre-social media.
everything's on the record. Whereas if you can get these guys off to the side, that's why the locker room is so important that we got to go back in at the season. So we
Hmm.
can learn stuff to relay to readers and viewers and listeners of the Tracy Sandler podcast better.
Hmm. That's true. And I think we get a little bit of it. Like last week, we got to talk to the assistant coaches, but you're still recording everything, and everything is on the record. And but that day, I kind of love that day because
You
that is
didn't or
really
did?
where you get. I'm sorry.
You did not love it or you loved it?
No, I do. I do love it just because you do get a little more time.
Yeah.
You get a little more time. And for instance, I got to sit with Leonard Hankerson, and I was the
Hmm.
only one with him. And I sat
Yes,
with
you were.
him for like 10 minutes.
Yes.
And we just talked. And I'm not going to write everything he said, but it gave me so much for the season about his wife. And we went like guy by guy, and it was
That's
so
good.
helpful.
That
And
is
so I
good.
have that. And that's a good thing to have. And I think it would be cooler if we had more off the record time like that because you get to build more trust and you get to learn more. But at least we get a little bit. But as you mentioned, we get the locker room back when the season starts, and that is going to be just
You
a
know,
literal game changer.
the one of the one assistant that I was kind of surprised that I don't know if I've really had an in-depth conversation with him over the 6 years, but he's one of the longest tenured guys on staff, and it's Daniel Bullock's their safety coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, this guy's going to be head coach in a few years. He has a
Okay.
really good demeanor and he's sharp. And then I was watching him on the practice field, and I'm like, yeah, he's going to be a rising star, right? Because if
Mm-hmm.
D'Amico leaves in a couple years, and whether Bullock's, I don't know if he's ready for a DC, but he's going to go places. It's kind of cool. That's why that's why they have those availabilities and stuff. You find the guys that you can see that ambition in their eyes, or maybe a Kosaric who's absolutely perfect at his job as a defensive line
Mm-hmm.
coordinator, kind of like what Tom Sula was, and they kind of pigeonholed him into this head coaching role, which was not him.
No.
Um, so yeah.
Well, you mentioned this is I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
do a transition. Let's see how I do on this. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see how we do, guys.
Okay.
We talked about Trey Lance getting through training camp healthy. You mentioned Jim Harbaugh. Two people who have not got out of training camp healthy are Charvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley, which means we saw a lot of, you see, this is where the transition is
I
here.
like it.
Diamador Lenore. We saw a lot of other people, but I'm specifically interested in talking about Diamador Lenore and University of Michigan alum Ambry Thomas. You see what I did there? It wasn't like the most smooth, but I did try to bring it all
You know
back.
what? If you're gonna use like your bias, you could have said like, Southern California product or Los Angeles area product Diamador Lenore and University of Michigan product Ambry
You're
Thomas.
right. So we'll start that over. So
Ah, no,
Los
no, no,
Angeles.
no. No, you bring up a
No.
really good point. No, I mean to me, that is going to be one of the big aspects of this preseason is how are these, they're supposedly so much deeper and better at cornerback than last year when they were bringing in these aging veterans of Josh Norman and Drake Kirkpatrick and everything. Everybody was hurt. Jason Brett's gone in the first game of the season. So training camp starts and Charvarius Ward looks amazing. He's all over these wide receivers, making plays, absolutely what you paid him for. And then Emmanuel Mosley's having a really good camp, and everybody's saying, "Don't forget about Mosley." And then, the wild card in all this is if Jason Brett comes back, and that could be a fascinating story in a couple of weeks. But I'll say the surprise cornerback of camp has been Diamador Lenore.
Yes, it is.
He has made plays. He has been in coverage. He's been involved. He's given up catches, but you just kind of sense that he's getting back whatever confidence he had a year ago before he was lost in the abyss of the rookiness. And then Ambry is somebody that it's really curious because he finished the season so strong. And it was almost by default that they had to put him in because these other guys weren't playing well. And they're like, all right, get him in there. He's going to learn. And he's very aggressive with his hands. And he gets a little too many penalties because he's doing that. And then he's gotten beat too many times this training camp. But he's young. He's got to learn from it. And he is. And that's what this preseason's for. And then if you slide in a new rookie nickelback and Sam Womack III out of Toledo, I believe. Mud Hens. Oh, that's baseball team.
It's not the Mud Hens, but it's Toledo.
Anyhow, he's looked pretty
good. They
brought
in an outfielder, and he's been great.
And they have Kadar Holman has done some stuff in practices, or he's been in the starting unit in place of these guys, and we don't know much about him. So it'll be fascinating to see how they do against Jordan Love. The Packers anointed Trey Lance, their Trey Lance of Aaron Rodgers. So
yeah, and it's an important preseason for them, and it's important for San Francisco because Mosley is a person who has trouble staying healthy, and he's going into a contract year. And if I'm the 49ers, maybe I think, okay, if Diamador Lenore and Ambry Thomas or one of them can emerge a little bit, then maybe we're not signing Mosley again next year, because we've got these guys. So I don't know. We'll see. But Mosley does have a lot of trouble staying healthy. And that hamstring issue is an issue that he had last season as well. There was COVID and then hamstring and then knee. I mean, there was stuff that he was dealing with. Yeah. So the hamstring issue, I think, is worth, keeping an eye on. So I think for the 49ers perspective, it is also a lot of opportunity to look at these guys. And of course, that's the season will tell a lot too. But they do have a lot of depth in corner. But the question is, do they? Because if Ward and Mosley are hurt and Verrett can't come back full speed, or he kind of can these guys fill in? So that to me is a very interesting storyline and one to certainly keep an eye on. So there's that conversation. So that was something I wanted to discuss. The Michigan in me really is pulling for that Ambry Thomas, but we'll see how it all goes. Go Blue! I'm always very biased towards my school guys. This is not like a shock. Then we have, of course, the lovely interior of the offensive line.
Lovely.
Lovely. I'm going with, lovely. The lovely interior of the offensive line. That's me being optimistic. That is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And that does factor into the success of Trey Lance this year. Not entirely, but it doesn't not factor into the success of Trey Lance this year. Let's say that.
All right. Let's start with, I think the number one question for that interior offensive line is Aaron Banks worth a damn? Okay. It's your second round draft pick, got hurt in last preseason, right? He hurt his shoulder or whatever and didn't play. He played 5 snaps as a rookie. So nobody saw him. We've seen mixed results on the practice field. Sometimes he looks good. Sometimes he looks lost. Sometimes he loses his leverage. Well, it's time now to see what he can do. And he's going to be next to the best offensive lineman in the NFL. And no matter how bad you are, Trent Williams is going to make you look better than you are, right?
Correct. Yes.
Better. And the center competition, to me, center is very important.
Very important.
I played the position in 8th grade, Tracy.
So
I know
you got
I
to be,
know the
I only like to bring people on who have
yeah.
true knowledge of the
I
game.
know what happens when I snap the ball over the quarterback's head and the other team recovers for back-to-back touchdowns on back-to-back snaps.
Yeah, it
It's a
doesn't go
rough
well.
life, but I
There's a
don't
reason you're covering the sport and not playing center anymore.
that's only because my mom didn't let me play tackle football.
Oh, that definitely is the only reason for sure.
That's it. And then, because
100%.
we know that I can make catches from Brock Purdy. It's
That's
all great.
that's true. But you still wouldn't be a center.
So, I mean, I guess Jake Brendel's the leader in the clubhouse and to me, it's almost like they're like, let's let Burford take all his snaps at right guard. He needs to get coached up and he looks pretty good. And then it's like, we could always move Brunskill back in there, but can you now? Because if
I
Brunskill,
don't know if you can.
if Spencer Burford looks pretty good and this kid's got a lot of charisma, he's got the, the confidence I think you need to be in there. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But at the same time, there's part of me going, it's just a ruse. They're letting this guy take some snaps. They know they can plug Brunskill in there because they were, easing up on his workload through the offseason anyhow, because he's had a knee issue. Put him back in there. He knows how to play with McGlinchey, and off and away they go. So I guess that could be the case. There's two things about this. One, they've invested a lot of day 2, day 3 draft picks in their interior offensive linemen. They want to see how these guys perform. Two, and people are clamoring, oh, go get all these free agents that are out there. Look, the supply and demand of really good offensive linemen is non-existent. Okay, they're not stacking up like houses on the market right now. It's just not going out there. There's nobody there. So they've got to go with what they have right now and believe that Chris Forster can coach them up, and that Trey Lance is mobile enough to escape the pressure that's coming his way up the gut.
I think you hit it on the head. If
Oh,
we were
thanks.
texting about this, I would send you the bullseye emoji.
Oh, lovely.
Lovely. So the lovely interior of the offensive line. Time will tell if it's indeed lovely. Stay tuned on September 11th in Chicago to
Yeah.
see if I actually think the interior of the offensive line is lovely or just not that lovely after all. Stay tuned. Though we may not really know until week 3 against the Broncos, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Those first 2 games are going to
Maybe.
be a little bit, I think, easy, but we'll see. It's going to be
I think
it's going to be interesting.
it's a pretty easy schedule, isn't it? To the start off with. I mean,
It is. It definitely. I mean, it certainly is easier than they've had in a while.
I think so. I mean, there's no juggernaut waiting for you.
No,
So, other
it really
than
isn't.
you do have your NFC West tormentor Russell Wilson now waiting for you in week 3, like you said. But
But
you
he
know,
doesn't play defensive line.
he doesn't play defensive line. He's got a new coach. They got new ownership. There's all this other newness about him, and I'm not ready to buy into them. I think yeah, I don't know.
No, it's just the Russell Wilson factor. And I mean,
Exactly.
if the 49ers just can't, I mean, it's just, if they lose that game, it's just, he's going to be like their tormentor.
He should just come out in pregame warmups in week 3 in Denver because it's a Sunday night football game. He should come out still eating turkey legs to remind them what he did on their football field on Thanksgiving. I
Yeah,
still own you guys. I still got all the turkey legs.
but
And
I don't
get 'em
think
fired up.
anybody, I don't think there's a single person on this team except, I guess, Jimmy Ward, that would really mean
Yeah.
anything to. I think, including coaching. I mean, I think Jimmy Ward would be the only person on
But
that
the
field.
people would know. People
That's
would
true. The people
know.
would know. The people would know. It's a very good point. Well, Cam, I think we've covered the main points and
Yeah,
excitement for
yeah,
Friday nights.
I think so.
I almost called it the NFC Championship, and it definitely is not
It's not.
preseason. It's definitely not.
We don't need hand warmers or parkas this time around.
We
Uh,
do not.
but
It's
hey,
much nicer.
there will be special teams plays to watch, just like the last time the Packers and 49ers met, because they got new special teamers that are supposed to be better. So
That's true. And actually, special teams is something that probably is not getting talked about enough in
no, it's
this.
because nobody wants to. It's
Because
quarterback
no one,
time.
yeah, because no one wants to talk about it. But as the season goes on, I actually think it will be very interesting to watch this because they have a new special teams coach. They invested in special teams. The 49ers struggled there. It was
Yeah.
not lovely last season, very not lovely. So, actually, as the season goes on, I think that does become something very important to watch. So, but we won't worry about that today, Cam, because we got a whole big season in front of us. And if you think you're not coming back on this podcast, then you are wrong.
Oh, I don't do regular season podcasts. I mean, that's just,
Yes,
unless
you
it's
do.
the Tracy Sandler Show.
Exactly. It is the Tracy Sandler Show. And you do regular season podcasts because I've had you on.
Huh?
So
Well, thanks for coming on my show, Tracy. I appreciate it. It's
absolutely. It was lovely. It was
yeah.
absolutely lovely. And really quick with Cody Corner, I'm just gonna say I continue to stand by him. He still tends to be clutch Cody. He's
Okay,
batting
on
over
that point,
200. And that's what I got. Also, may I just mention that the Dodgers have won 10 in a row, 3
mm,
straight sweeps, quite the homestand. And
mm,
Joe Gallo hit a home run on Wednesday. So
mm.
things are happening. I do think they're the best team in baseball that right now. I just need them to stick with that. But
Well,
this that we can talk about that later.
only
Not
one of
we,
us
because
is
you won't
wearing
want
Dodger
to.
blue right now, though. So
Exactly. I'm shocked. You clearly like subconsciously knew where
yes.
you were going today. I love it. Well, Cam, thank you so much
Okay.
for joining us. Please tell everybody where they can find you.
Okay, so Instagram, I'm at 49ers.cam. On Twitter, at Cam Inman. And then you can go to mercurynews.com, eastbaytimes.com, mainly mercurynews.com to read the stuff. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Some 95.7 The Game radio and other things here and there. So a little bit of everything.
Little bit of everything. You
Yep.
follow him on the socials, and you won't be able to miss a thing.
Thank
So
you.
if you guys like what you heard, and I know that you did because Cam's amazing, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Follow us on Instagram at Fangirl Sports Network. We are brought to you by FIVO. We are brought to you by Bet Online. And with that, let's get ready for some football. Bye, all.